Hey folks, this episode brought to you by GPS Track It. Go to gpstrackit.com and tell them Auman sent you to talk about GPS technology.
Welcome to the Kid Contractor Podcast with Caleb Auman. On this show, we interview top green industry, construction, and business professionals. Your host, Caleb, runs a successful 7-figure business with his wife, Brittany, and has over 20 years in the industry. The kid has learned some valuable lessons he wants to share with you. The principles discussed will energize and empower you to crush your goals. And now, from the Company Cam Studios, the Kid Contractor Podcast with your host, Caleb Auman.
Hey folks, welcome to the Kid Contractor Podcast. Welcome to the show. This is part 2 of the first episode series from Auman HQ, the Kid Contractor Podcast, Company Cam Studios. We are so happy you joined us. I actually don't know where this is getting chopped up, but this might be the episode where you hear why a client dropped us and asked for their money back on their deposit. So a little teaser there for you, but I think it's some good lessons of where I still, even after 20 years in contracting, and even a job we didn't do so awesome on, which actually we didn't get into that fully. I'll have to make a whole nother podcast on that. Folks, the second part here, I hope you enjoy it with Brittany, myself, and Pap. So we'll catch you on the next one, folks. Enjoy this episode. We'll see you.
Mark, why did you get out of the field? You got out of the field.
Somewhat, you got out.
I was in the field a lot.
He went in and out of it.
Right.
But I enjoyed being out in the field. But here's something that we found in our personal company. We had many salespeople that we'd hired, and some of them were really high paid, and some of them were really good. But we found that when you looked at that salesman's, just the amount that we were paying him, and the sales that was happening, there weren't a lot of actual new sales leads that wasn't within our customer base. So I looked at that and I thought, at that particular, and I don't even want to throw out numbers but it was a highly paid salesman. And I looked at that and I thought, we are paying him so much, but he's just getting sales from what we're generating out in the field, and
repeat
service
work
and repeat work. And for the most part, I don't even have to look at these jobs to go to make a sale. Only thing I got to do is just give a call. I know everything there is to know about that place. This particular one, maybe Speedway, or we done a lot of rest homes, a lot of commercial work, Texas. I knew every piece of equipment, what it looked like, and if they needed something. I didn't have to go to the job. I knew what they needed, what they wanted. But yet our salesperson would go out there, and lay out different things and, sell this job. And I thought, I can do this, save that price of his salary, and just put it towards profit at the bottom line. And that was me, and that was how I done it. And interestingly enough, it did work. We were very profitable.
Right.
And that was a good move as far as I was concerned. And we never did get another salesperson after that. I just handled all the sales, and Orville was working some part-time, and he would do some sales, of course, when he was around. But that's the way we wanted to handle it. That's the way we did handle it, and it was profitable, and, I've done okay.
Did that pull you out of the field more then? And then did you have to hire a field person to replace you?
No, not really. Like I said, I could do this almost with a phone call. Just, give me some price of the equipment. I don't know if it's a rooftop. And when you're out in the field and you're working, you know your customer, you know what they have. And like Speedway would have like a typical, they were big on train units. I always had 7.5 tons or 10-ton units, and I knew which one was what, and I knew the model numbers. I knew them right off the top of my head. And they say, we've got to replace this thing. What can you do on this? And so I said, well, I know what this is, and I knew how close I could get the crane and what it was going to cost, and especially all the permitting issues, whether I had to pull permit or I didn't have to pull permit, and you just kind of, there's no real effort, no real time involved. You just know it, and so then you just put it in your price. You call, get some current numbers, and voila, there it was.
Right, and that's one of the things that makes our industry so, on the green side, so difficult and challenging. It's not a lot of plug and play or replace with like. It's every freaking job is custom.
Exactly.
It's a nightmare, and you folks in there, especially if you listen to the Mass Hardscaper.
There's never a job that's the same.
Yeah, so that part on our end sucks. Now, granted, if you're in mowing or like irrigation service, there you go. That kind of, you're replacing heads, and again, it's like with like, and but in landscape design, build work, like every job's custom. And then if you're in a residential nightmare, and I say that lovingly, folks, but like you're dealing with people's houses, and so they're going to want to be involved in most cases in every step of the way. And I don't mean this to take away from what you're doing or your salesman part, because I wonder, like with the salesman guy, could he handle, if you guys wanted to double in size, would he have been, you know what I mean? Would he be able to handle that book of business of double what he was producing? And so, like, yeah, we're growth minded. That's when he would have brought the value back to the company.
Perhaps.
Okay.
I'm
just I'm curious. I asked that because I just wonder, like, again, just for the sake of conversation, like, okay, maybe he was underutilized, or could have been, if you were growth minded, which you weren't necessarily, to double and triple and become.
I think that's probably what it was. I really wasn't growth minded. You do so much better job than I did about trying to grow your company.
Yeah, you made a lot more money than I have, though.
Well, I did.
So who's really right?
Well, again, different businesses, and I was around enough to know what I thought was profitable.
Yeah,
and most of the time, it was profitable. And so all the new work and things, there was never any money in all the new. The money was always in our business.
Yeah.
It was always in the service end and all the replacements after that.
Yeah.
And boy, I tell you, that was great money, and we took care of the customer and made money, and everybody was happy.
Right,
and part of it.
And by the way, to Mark and the audience, I'm not demeaning HVAC work or saying that's an easy line of work or an easy business to run or anything. And I'll make part of my case on that is, Mark, you eventually dropped residential service, right?
Mostly.
And why is that, Mark?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I did not want to deal with that. It was just too hard to
It's
deal
tough,
with.
Man. It really is.
Residential stuff. But there's many companies out there that really makes a lot of money with residential.
Yeah.
And they got the system down. And it sort of reminds you what you try to do in many cases. Trying to limit what you're selling, and maybe for as far as you're concerned, like the different styles of pavers. Why offer about 100 different kind of pavers and about 150 different colors, and just like but these guys that again, back to our business one more time, they had it down in the corner. They offered this, and said, well, I like Lennox. Well, we're not a Lennox dealer, and no, this is what we're handling, this is what we're wanting to do, and they can really make a lot of money, just volume if nothing else.
Well, I tell you, that brings it to talking about it, because we've done that song and dance of like too many offerings. We'd hand out 3 paver catalogs back in the day.
But you're
option overload.
But aren't you starting to get that narrowed down a little bit?
Oh, we have for years. Yeah, we whittled that down a long time ago. Once we started realizing like our clients were essentially almost confused with the amount we'd hand them 3 different manufacturer catalogs, with a billion options, but now it's like we kind of guide the, you folks see the Unilock catalogs there on the thing, and Unilock's our brand, and again, supporters of Hardscape Academy here in the Auman
Well, actually, something that's
endeavor.
really cool is our paver supplier, Unilock. They came out with a product sheet.
There we go,
There
Mark.
we go.
Thank you.
There we go.
There you are.
Okay, so, but you talked about like narrowing people's choices down.
Yep.
So you can print out a product sheet for each product in here, And so if I only want to sell Beacon Hill or I only want to sell Copthorne or whatever, I am now, so for next season, I'm going to print that out on like nice cardstock paper. And I'm going to hand it to the person, and I'm going to circle what color recommendation I think would work best for their house. And so that way I eliminate
all of those
16 different quotes because, I really like Tribeca Cobble, but I also want to see what it would look like with Westport. And then maybe if you could do 2 different bands on them. We just don't have the capacity for that. If we had a full design team, that would be different.
That's one thing. And it depends on the scope of the project. So many of the jobs we do are $10,000 to $20,000, $30,000 jobs. If it's a $140,000 backyard, it's worth having that conversation for a super high-end project. We're not doing super high-end work. We're doing like micro high-end, let's say, like still high-end quality, of course.
The project size just isn't.
The project size isn't there, and it doesn't justify all that back and forth. It just isn't there. The more time we give that kind of stuff, and once in a while we do, and that's okay.
Well, I think part of it is people see all these photos in magazines and on the internet of these big elaborate projects like you see on the front of this catalog.
And their paver expectations are just unrealistic.
No, but they're like, I really like that. And then when I do a rendering of it up against their house, it's like
my body shaming.
It's like, oh no, I don't want that. It looks pretty, but it doesn't look right with my house. And so then we're back to square one with designing. They think they want rectilinear, but it turns out no, they want curves and rustic pavers.
Yeah, and
because this is pretty, but it wouldn't look good on our house.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
exactly. That's a good point. Yeah. So you got a guide, and we get asked that a lot through the Hardscape Academy. People asking us like, how do I know what pavers to offer and stuff like that? Or like when my clients ask this and that, the main thing is they're looking for you to guide them on like what they want. And for the most part, so you control that narrative to an extent in an ethical way, of course. But pick a supplier, go with it, and if it's Unilock in your region, we'd ask you to consider talking to Unilock. But you control that narrative to an extent, and you kind of guide them, which is why you've got to become so versed. That's why there's so much more to all this that you need to learn, and that's why, like with anything, like what are you willing to be excellent at, and you've got to. The hardscaping especially is like one of those things, like anything, I wouldn't recommend you just dabble in hardscaping. Yeah, do a couple where you rent all the machines and equipment and stuff to do it. But after that, either figure out you're going to do hardscaping or not. Because when Mark and I were moving all this crap around our building here for the spray foam guys, we had to move everything from one side to the other so they could do the other half and vice versa. It's just a reminder of like, this stupid business requires so much capital and so much equipment and stuff that it's not something you want to dip your toe in. Like snow, I did snow for years and always had my toe in the water, and we provided poor service. We were always behind the 8 ball when it snowed because I was relying heavily on subs and old busted equipment. And in the hardscape thing, it's like, it's any business. You don't want to just dabble in it. And then Mark made that point too of like, even in HVAC, we're not going to do a system Linux because we primarily deal with, who do you primarily install, Mark? What brand? Train. Yeah. And we're not going to branch out because we just don't know those units like we know Train. And the same thing goes for your own business of like trying to streamline that stuff so that it runs as smooth as it possibly can. And we had that lesson this week. This was going to be another podcast episode. We might as well run into this, and we'll just break it up maybe here in a couple shows. And Mark, if you got to leave or whatever, you break away when you want to or need to. Hey folks, you might have seen on our social media channels us using Bartell compaction equipment, and we bought our first Bartell compactor. I want to say it was the 1570 mini reversible with like 3,500 pounds of centrifugal force. That's the important thing about pavers and compaction is the centrifugal compaction force. So when you're buying compactors, that's what you want to be looking for. You need minimum 3,500 pounds for most of your paver work. Bigger the better, but also there's a fine line there for your consolidation, which I'll talk about here in a second. Bartell compaction equipment. We love that 1570. We then struck a deal with these guys. We got a roller compactor from them. We love that thing. Bartell's a big name in the construction and concrete world, and they're breaking into the hardscape world here too, and we hope to be part of the catalyst for that. Bartell Global. They are all over the place. It's well-made. It's super well-made equipment. Check out bartellglobal.com. Get on there, and you can find a dealer nearby. You might talk to the MQuip folks up in Canada. You can get it through them for sure. I know too. Bartell Global. Check out that compaction equipment and a bunch of other stuff they've got too. bartellglobal.com. Thanks, folks. We had a situation last week that I was kicking myself in the fanny for of breaking out into something we shouldn't have done. And we did a mortar masonry project, a repair job. One, I flat bid the job like an idiot. I'm embarrassed to say this in front of my father-in-law and just my peers in business in general, because I freaking know better and I do this stupid stuff. It was a job that a bunch of flagstone had been taken up. It was a wet lay patio, and I put a flat price on the thing. Talked to Bo just quick about it. You think we can get this, just putting pieces back in along the edge from a deck project that was put in. Long story. But anyways, flat price on it for the day. Okay, cool. Yeah, I think we can do that. Awesome. Here's the price. And I know better, folks. And I still submitted that flat price instead of time and material only. Because I guess apparently don't want to make any money or be profitable or anything or buy a nice truck or anything.
On this job, that was the case. Yes, you did not want any of those things.
And and we got killed. We were there 2 freaking days, and we had it budgeted for a day, and we got killed. So we were out another whole day's production and profit of another job, and we're on that same job for still that 1 day's rate that had no machines in it. It was strictly labor. And it was just one of those things like, we shouldn't be doing this. We rarely deal with this stuff. Now,
last week was a bad week.
Last week
we lost
sucked.
that one job.
Productivity was crap. I screwed up the pricing on that one job because we just didn't say time material only. I didn't have a backbone to just say it and just tell my client, no, we cannot do this as a flat rate. And I just took it like a foolish little boy, and I'm really mad at myself. But, they say the best lessons are usually, well, actually, I say this. The best lessons are usually the most expensive or the most painful ones, and that one was both. And
well, even on top of that, we lost a job last week, too.
And why is that? Which one? I don't remember.
Lack of communication.
Oh, yeah, that's what that note was. I couldn't understand my own note. And because I had a nice, just a little job again, 2-day. This one was 2-day. I knew we were good there because this was in our wheelhouse, what we normally do. And between being bogged down with this place and a couple other jobs, and it was a little job for an old couple in town in a little house, and it's the only thing they've got to worry about. And I knew from the get this was going to be a problem because the amount of communication they were needing right out the gate. Nice old guy, nice gal. They were cool, and I have no hard feelings.
They're the people
they were totally justified to fire us and ask for their money back.
They fill out a contact form on the internet and call you an hour later because you haven't responded to the contact form on the internet.
And that is so red flag, folks. And again,
they're really nice.
They were the sweetest folks, and our price was premium for this little job, absolutely premium price. And it was almost to the point where it's like, you really should look around because you can probably get some kids to do this. Not our quality, but I mean, it's just. But again, Greg Woodstock would slap me in the face, and maybe Mark, if he's, would say, don't you ever put your value of a project against the customers. And that's a damn truth, because here's me saying, I would never pay that for a little garden wall around my house, $5,000. I'd never do that. That's insane. But to them, it's worth it. They got a contractor they viewed as reliable at the moment. They've got, we came highly recommended. I burned this bridge bad, folks.
And there was no way they could do it themselves. So and
it was impossible for them to do it themselves, but they found somebody they trusted that came highly recommended. They showed up in not beat trucks and had other good work to present. And I totally blew this because I didn't keep up on the communication. Now, granted, their need for communication was like way up here, but I knew that, and I still dropped the ball. And eventually they called and said, hey, Caleb, we'd like our deposit back. We're going to part ways. And it's like, I don't blame you, and you should. And I'm more than happy to do the job, but I totally screwed up here. And
which sucks because we were still going to make it on schedule for when we said we'd be there.
Yeah.
We just couldn't.
But they had some questions on, again, their 40th question on block color. And it's just one of those things I got,
And they had samples dropped off, and the samples were different than the catalog colors.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. Yep. But it was just like, it was just one of those things. I knew when we rolled up this job, I just knew it wasn't a good fit for us just because it was just a little house. It was a little job. And if I want to keep getting into bigger projects, I got to stop taking on. Like I preach this all the time. You get known more for what you do more of. And here I am still doing these $5,000 jobs and $10,000. And by the way, $10,000 is like a wheelhouse job for us. That's like perfect. That's a great job for us. 2 guys all week. That's perfect. But I rolled up to, I was like, Caleb, you should really turn this job. You shouldn't do this one. And I still took it anyways because they were nice folks. And I'm like, yeah, we can do it. You never know when you need a filler job. But that $5,000, all that time I put in that job, now I'm not even doing. So I've lost all that time. It's a complete loss. Mark's about to go to sleep on my rant. I don't blame you. And it was just like, I totally deserve everything that came out of that because I was just absolutely stupid about the whole situation.
Caleb couldn't even talk his way out of it. Can you believe that?
No, I didn't give that my full. No, I didn't make it my full. But the old guy said, he's like, he left a voicemail, and he's like, Caleb, we're going to ask for a deposit back and go our separate ways. And he's like, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And it's like, I don't blame you, man. And the reality is, I didn't want to try to fight for it because I didn't want to keep letting him down. Because I'm so buried with this place. We had the Eaton job.
Now, I think that a job like that would work out well. When you're coming into a slower time, I just think that would have worked out really well. But in your defense, you are juggling so much right now that if somebody needs that real constant communication and just that hand holding,
that's a good word for
you're
it.
better at that at some points in time. But right now, you're juggling about 1,000 different things,
right?
And it's very, very hard to hold somebody's hand that is extremely needy.
Yeah, and that's what that was. And the time, so just the timing, it was just one of those things. Another one of those lessons learned of like a reminder of like.
It is just a difficult, not a hard year. It's just an abnormal year.
Yeah, but
because it could be more difficult than it is. There could be like way worse things going on.
No, of course, yeah, yeah.
But
so,
we're down to 2 days a week on a babysitter. Like everything. We used to have a babysitter 5 days a week.
Right. Well, yeah, but whatever. We can make excuses all day. At the end of the day, talking about just last week sucking, was I took on a job at not time material, which was stupid because it wasn't a standard install for us. It was truly custom work of a repair, and then after that, it was just getting bogged down and not taking care of these old folks like we could have. And that's one of the reasons we got out of lawn care. Is like we started having those situations where I wasn't giving our clients the attention they deserved. And that's why we started getting out of lawn care.
You couldn't give a $40 lawn the same attention that you needed to give a $20,000 patio.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But they wanted the same amount of attention.
Right. 100%. And we didn't, at the time, we didn't have the mindset to hire a manager to just grow and take care of that division.
I still don't think I would.
I'd kick it around now, but I don't want to go down that route now. So, Mark, in your business, can you think of any like big pivots other than, or maybe you talk about getting out of residential or whatever, like big pivots in your company, or like, nope, we're not doing this again, or whatever.
That was a big pivot for us. It was like, we're going to make every effort to. We went from nearly 100% residential at the beginning of this.
You can't necessarily build jobs.
Sorry.
No worries. And just with all the hassle and everything involved, we just made a point to go in a commercial direction, and it was the best decision I ever made.
Was it scary?
It was not, because it was more of a gradual thing. But we made every effort to try to pick up this residential and the commercial refrigeration part of it. See,
right.
At the beginning, we'd done very little refrigeration. But at the end, Britt, and because you work for us,
yeah.
Practically every call involved refrigeration. That's what we were doing.
Yeah.
And
that was probably 75% of the calls.
I guess
was
so.
refrigeration.
Yeah, probably 75% of all our calls.
And the other, like air conditioning and heating, that was pretty much in the extreme temperature weather.
Yeah, always with the extreme temperature. Well,
and we had a handful of maintenance stuff that we did.
Yeah, well, but I'm not going to say extreme but at the beginning of the year when all the commercial people were turning on the air conditioning, and trying to run, as you well know, it wasn't anything unusual for it to be 30 degrees outside and we get a call, we need air conditioning.
Yes.
We need air conditioning. And people it's not in the business, don't really realize that, the commercial facilities, when it's 30 degrees out, they still need air conditioning.
Yeah.
So,
Or all their chocolate melts off the shelves.
Exactly right. And we get complaints.
That was
you were not here yesterday.
That was one of the funny. I got a call from one of the managers or service guys or whatever, and they're like, all the chocolate's melting on the shelves. And I was like, oh gosh, okay. We'll get out there for our critical.
Yeah, that's a big deal. In that world especially.
Well, they were losing all that product.
Yeah,
and then that fell on us. Like, I don't think it was ever our responsibility to.
It was not our responsibility.
But it was a weight.
And as you remember, they deemed that all in, what they call 4-hour criticals.
Right.
Or 24 hours, or a routine, or, had all these designations on how you should respond, and how we did respond, by the way. So, yeah, good business. I enjoy it. I enjoyed it. I should say I'm not doing it any longer, but I enjoyed it.
Well, we'll see how rusty you are, if you got rusty at all over the next phase of the building process here.
We hope you can stick it
I hope
together.
you retained it. Yeah, I hope you retained a bit of it.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Oh, shoot.
Hopefully we have some heat this winter.
Britt, so we can squeeze 2 episodes out of this thing. We're going to go 15 more minutes. What else do you want to talk about here other than me sucking at running a company last week?
We had our friends Brian and Emily Kellett over here the other night.
Yeah.
And you were off talking to some of our clients, and they're like, yeah, we're so excited for you, and the building's so awesome, blah blah blah. And I'm like, yeah. And Brian's like, you don't sound excited. And I was like, I've gone through, this has been like a roller coaster, right? So you get really excited when you purchase the property, then you get tired of waiting for the building, then you get really excited when the building goes up. And so it's just like this excitement, bored with it. And right now, like, there's so many like detail things, and you don't, like, I know things are getting accomplished, but it's just
A lot of loose ends.
None of the glory work. And so, like, and it's tied up so much of your time, and I know it's tied up like my parents' time, and I've just felt disinterested in the building recently. It's not that I don't like the building, it's just like another Saturday, another evening, another, like, I don't know. And so it's a weird feeling for me, because it's something that I've wanted for so long and we worked so hard for, and it's hard to say. It's just, I think, like, once drywall goes up, it'll be like a new excitement. Like, oh, okay, there's walls. There's something. I can start putting the TVs on the wall that I've been purchasing for the past year. I think the excitement and spirit will come back, but it is an emotion that I've been dealing with, because also it's taken so much time away from the kids.
Right.
And it's like, okay, I don't want to miss this time with the kids, but also I want to get the building done really quick. So it's like, okay. And is my hesitation with building a house someday. I'm like, holy cow. Like, there's Levi. He's 4. He's going to be 5 by the time this thing is done.
Yeah.
And he was 3 when we started it.
Yeah, it's funny. The whole land purchase process and all that. The real time suck didn't come out of this until January this year, but yeah.
When he was 3.
I guess if you're going to, we got a man down. Levi fell on something here while. What happened, Book? Oh man. Oh, we busted our back on something. I think he got down underneath something there and stood up too fast. Maybe scratched his back.
Probably. He always gets hurt. So it's not that, like.
That sounds like burnout. Sounds like you're burnt out.
I am. Like, I just. It's weird. And I don't know that I should even admit this on the podcast, but, like, I'm not excited to come here. It just seems like a job. Yeah.
Well, it's overwhelming, the amount of stuff we've got to do yet, and the time frame we have to do it. I think.
And it's funny because our, like, emotions of it change. Like, when you seem to be burnt out with the building, I'm like, it's okay. We'll get it done next week.
Well, thank God it works out that way.
And then, like, when I'm burnt out, you're like, yeah, we've got a lot to do, but it'll get done. And I don't know. It's just like this weird feeling I have about it right now. So
yeah, I mean, I know, and that's just in Kellett, our friends Kellett. They were actually the guests. They were the first guests on the podcast before it even had a name. 2 years ago now. Can you believe it? Podcast 2 years old. Is that right? 2 years old?
This winter it'll be 2 years old.
2 for sure this winter. And because we started at the Hype House 2 years ago, and officially anyway. And but Brian, this year was, like I said, a stretch. I don't want to say stretch financially. It's just, like you're floating money to pay contractors until your loan money comes back in and you're reimbursed for it and all that stuff. And then, like, the company's going, company's moving ahead good. We have a good job, good profitable jobs. Some jobs not so profitable, all that. We're also down a production member this year. So, like, net revenue or gross revenue is down. And so, I mean, our year last year in 2020 were awesome, absolutely wonderful, which also helped us prep for this year. It's just been a wild ride this year. And and Brian said that I'm just going to paraphrase it, but he was just like, he's like, yeah. He's like, and you'll look back and be like, that was, boy, remember when we thought that was a big challenge, and then look at what we're doing next, and it was like all our phases of life and business have been that way of like, man, like when we bought how scary it was when we bought our first Bobcat for $7,000. And it was like, oh gosh, this like, we might go broke because of this thing.
Oh, well, I imagine he said when he was here, he's like, he's like, you'll make it through this. And as soon as you're moved in, you'll say, what's next?
Right. Yeah.
And I think I'll probably feel that like, all right, we're in here. Now what do we do? But because that's just how we operate, I feel like we always have something in the works, so we're always trying to plan something.
Right.
So hopefully it goes that way. I don't know. I don't know if people usually feel this way when they're building places.
I'm sure it's a roller coaster, unless you're superhuman like Pap, and it's just, you're the goal's out there, and you're going to get there. It doesn't matter, like a train. And Britt and I
that's my thoughts on it too, by the way.
Britt and I are talking about the highs and lows. Mark, get your mic in front of your mouth there, if you would, sir.
Hey guys, it's Brittany with the Hardscape Academy. I'm so excited to announce that we are now live with our in-person trainings. They are on the website. We are ready to start hosting you in December. We are going to offer the trainings from December through April. They're every other week. They're 2 days. And then there's a third day add-on, but if you check out the website, you'll see more about that. The 2-day trainings will cover how to install pavers, how to install retaining walls, different basing systems. We'll cover business budgeting, and then also paver estimation. So we make sure we're recouping all of our costs and making the most money we can on these projects. We look forward to hosting you in beautiful Fairfield County, Ohio. So go on over to thehardscapeacademy.com. We'll see you soon.
The highs and lows of a building process, and we have these periods of great, and it goes this way in construction when you're building a patio project or whatever. Then I tell my clients this, especially on big ones, where it's like there's going to be days that look like we moved heaven and earth, and there's going to be days that didn't look, or in weeks sometimes it looks like we didn't do anything. And it's this shop build project's the same way. There's days and weeks where it's like, man, we got a lot done, and then there's days and weeks where it's like, what has even happened here for 2 weeks?
It's the glory and the non-glory work.
And that is.
Like the framing was glory work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, the offices took shape. This was amazing.
Yeah, look
the
at
electric is not glory work.
And then wiring and 37 can lights of thankless, non-glory work.
We've put a mile of wire into this place.
Yeah, and you know how cheap wire is these days. But it's always, I don't know if it's ever been cheap or thought of as to be cheap, but that is amazing, and we're even scaling back the amount of wiring we were going to do originally. So it's like,
I'm losing my spirit.
Yeah, right. Britt's losing her drive. She's burnt out. But once we get the place up and rolling, then it's going to be just like anything when you're building anything, building a company or whatever. It turns into refinement, because we had a couple years in the company where it's like we weren't focusing on growth, we were focusing on refinement and trying to figure out what the heck we were doing. And refining processes and
getting the right tools.
And just methodology and things. So it's just those highs and lows of a project you're either building for your customer, which, by the way, it's also been a huge thing to realize, like, what you're putting your clients through when we're dealing with other contractors or trades in here. And it's like, man, communication could have been a little better. Or it's like, man, I wish they would have done this, or it'd been cool if they'd have tidied up a little bit more, or, whatever. And although, like I said, everybody we've worked with really overall has been awesome. But you could easily see how, and again, it's because we're not hiring like bottom of the barrel contractors either. When you're trying to get like a deal on something and you're hiring some dudes that are sketchy, it's like, understand what that discount's going to get you. It's going to get you cheaper projects, but you're also going to deal with a lot of bull crap in the meantime that is not like tangible savings. I mean, there's tangible savings of the money, but there's also like the mental cost of like dealing with these shady contractors. And I wouldn't even say shady, just like they don't really run it as a legitimate business. It's just a job. They just kind of like, we all know what kind of contractors I'm talking about. And it's just dealing with that lack of professionalism, I'll say it that way, of like, they don't really run this like an Auman job or a Mulder or a Swihart or, some of my other peers in the industry. It's going to be the guys that are like just kind of doing their thing or doing whatever, and it's like, okay,
we'll be here in 20 minutes. Are you going to be there?
Or that kind of stuff, and it's just like
the delivery guy's there. You can meet him.
Yeah, I haven't heard from you in 3 months, and you're going to be there in 20 minutes. Like, Yeah, I'll drop everything I'm doing to allocate to your schedule now. And it's like,
yeah, Pap, can you meet these guys over there in 20 minutes? They're going to deliver something.
yeah, we got to offload a truckload of material. And it's like, thanks for a heads up, everybody. It would have been cool, though. And so poor Pap to the rescue. Thank goodness. So that's the process. So it's taught us to, again, and I say that, not having, the communication thing of like how important it is to communicate with your clients. And like I said, that job I lost last week, same exact deal. Like I didn't hold up my end of the deal communication wise for the prices we were charging. If we were charging about 30-40% less, I'd say, yeah, you buddy, that's what you get. That is what you're going to get with that. No, you're paying premium dollar. You should get premium level access. Well, that's not what they got. And so, it's all part of also what, and I've said this a lot, it's what allows you to charge premium rates is, that premium level of service and accountability. That's a big deal in business with who you hire and who you don't. Britt, any last thoughts here from the official first 2 episodes? We'll break this into 2 shows. The official first 2 shows from I did one podcast from this area, but I actually was on the neighbor's property and not in the building for the Harbin interview. Matter of fact, Jeremy Harbin down there in Alabama. And so it's the official, truly first podcast from the land itself and Auman HQ and the podcast itself. So congratulations. Mark, thank you for sharing this with us. It's been awesome.
Yep.
So folks from the Kid Contractor Podcast, Company Camp Studios here at Auman HQ, we appreciate you joining us. My other GoPro has died, so unfortunately we got Little Faithful here still running. But he's linked up to a big battery, so that's part of his cheat code there. Folks, we appreciate you joining us here on the show, and we look forward to many more with you here. We'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks for spending time with us today on the Kid Contractor Podcast. Visit the hardscapeacademy.com to access our free training courses. The link is in the show description. Connect with Caleb Auman at Auman Landscape on Instagram and on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and come back for the next episode of the Kid Contractor Podcast.